golfer.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Above Par Golf Show. Today's guest is Daniel Young, player on the European Tour and the Challenge Tour, and he's playing this weekend in the heroopen. How you doing, Daniel? You all right?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. So thanks for joining us. I know, of course, you've got your early tee-off time tomorrow. So first of all, how was today? Have you been out and have you been practicing today, or is it just kind of been a day of practice on the range? What have you been up to today?
Yeah, bit of a quiet day today, to be honest. Obviously the Pro-Am was on. I wasn't playing that, so yeah, just done a bit of practice pretty much most of the day. Kind of went down to the course of sort of late morning, and then just had a few hours practice, bit of lunch, and then came home sort of late this afternoon to chill out and get rest. Like you say, I've got a nice early tea time tomorrow, so yeah, just a nice quiet night before getting ready for tomorrow.
Yeah, you're teeing off the first one about 8:20, is it? Yeah,
8:20 tomorrow morning.
Yeah. So was it a practice round the day before then, or have you not had one this week?
Yeah, so I was down there Monday and Tuesday. I played 9 holes, played the front 9 on Monday morning, and then played 18 holes yesterday. So yeah, seen plenty of the course, and I've played it quite a few times previous. So it was more just kind of reacquainting myself with the golf course and just basically see how it's playing in this time of year, and if it's a bit softer or a bit bouncier than it normally might be.
Yeah, how's the weather up there at the moment? How's it looking for tomorrow?
The weather's been beautiful all week so far. Tomorrow I think is meant to be okay as well, but I think the wind's meant to pick up as the day goes on, and then I think forecast wise anyway, from Friday onwards doesn't look particularly pretty. Looks like the good old Scottish summer is going to catch up with us.
Yeah, it's the same down here. Maybe we had like that week and a half or so of sun, didn't we? Then now it's just all gone, and it's just all rain.
Honestly, I think today I was speaking to a few of the foreign guys, and they couldn't quite believe it. I think it might have been their first time ever wearing sun cream in Scotland.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, do you prefer it like that then? Do you prefer to play in the kind of hot weather, not hot maybe, but drier conditions, or do you prefer kind of that bit of rain and weather in there?
I don't think anybody likes playing in the rain, to be honest.
Well, I don't know. I mean, obviously you're from Scotland yourself. You kind of get used to it sometimes, don't you?
Well, that's what I was going to say. I think the one thing about that is I'm obviously probably a lot more used to it than some guys. So I think sort of patience levels and things like that come into the equation a lot more when the weather's bad. Yeah, I mean, I certainly don't like it, but it's all part of the job, and just kind of get your head down, grind away, and get on with things when it does get a bit ropey. So sure. Yeah, it's one of those ones. Obviously, I think everybody would like to play in the sun and not much wind most of the time, but when you're coming up to a links course, you're never going to get that for 4 days.
Yeah, and you mentioned you've obviously got a bit of experience there then. So like how many times have you played there? When did you play there? Were you playing there in pro tournaments, or is it mainly like amateur stuff when you were younger? Or
so no, there was no amateur events actually on there. It's just I'm fairly local enough. It's only 40 minutes down the road for me, so I think it's pretty much most of my golf there has actually been through the winter months. They, like a lot of the courses, sort of links golf in the winter. It doesn't obviously get as beat up as parkland courses, so the course is always in pretty good shape throughout the winter. They keep the back tees out, and you don't have to use mats, so it's quite good for sort of winter golf and getting down there and just test yourself on a sort of bigger courses. Obviously, you'll know yourself down south. A lot of the courses get a bit shorter in the winter months and things like that. So it's nice to have an option like this to get down there. But I did play in this event last year up at the same venue, so it was obviously a little later in the year. I think it was mid-October time last year. So it's obviously the weather this year is certainly much warmer than it was than I can remember last year.
Yeah. So did you have like a little walk of the course then? Are you the kind of guy that will have a walk around the course with the caddy or whatever and check it all out and make notes and stuff like that? Or you just kind of fairly laid back, just maybe have a practice round and nothing else?
Yeah, fairly laid back, especially when it's a course I've seen plenty. It's one of those courses where there's no real surprises. There's maybe only a couple of holes where you need to watch what you're doing a little bit off the tee and get yourself a bit more positionally placed than others. But yeah, like I said, I've obviously played it plenty. I had four 4 tournament rounds around it last year, so I kind of have a rough idea how they'll probably set it up as well, which is obviously a big bonus. So yeah, I just kind of, like I said, played 9 holes Monday, and then 18 yesterday, and for me that's good enough. Obviously still have my yardage book that I kind of took out for a reference on Monday and Tuesday, just to kind of see if there was any tweaks and things like that to change up from last year. And I think I'm quite lucky. My caddy's actually from the area as well, so he's been up there a few times and knows the course fairly well. So I think between the two of us, we've kind of hopefully got all angles covered.
Yeah, I imagine as well, it's a little bit of, you don't want to overthink it at the same time, do you? Practicing too much and getting yourself in a mindset of overthinking it. Really, it's just like, as you said, it's something that it's a course that you feel comfortable there. So why overthink it?
100%. I think it's very easy in this game to do that from sort of a lot of different angles. I think I feel like whenever you hear guys playing their best golf, it's just everything's been kept simple and you're doing all the basics right. So yeah, I think it could have been, or would be, very easy to overcomplicate a week like this. But yeah, I feel like I've sort of prepped myself quite well, and sort of done the prep earlier on sort of Monday, Tuesday in the week, and obviously just took today pretty easy, and just kind of done a bit of short game and stuff like that, to obviously to get everything ready for tomorrow. But I think I think like you said, for me it's just a case of basically I've got everything I had last year, and I played sort of reasonable around it for 4 days last year. So yeah, it's pretty much trying not to overcomplicate, I think, is probably the plan.
So as somebody that knows the course pretty well then, and the caddy as well, what sort of key points have you kind of taken out of the practice round and like the build up to the tournament? What sort of things can we expect from the course, let's say, this weekend?
I think it's like any golf course. I think it's very weather dependent. I think if we get the way the weather's been the last sort of 2 or 3 days, not much wind, and it's been playing, it was a bit softer than I thought it would be playing. So I would say if it's going to be like that for the rest of the week, the scoring will be very good. The greens are pure, so you'll get a lot of chances, and there'll be guys rolling in a lot of putts. So I can see the scoring being quite low if the weather's favourable. But then again, on the other hand, if the wind gets up and we get a bit of rain and stuff like that, it's a quirky little course. When the wind gets up, there's holes that go kind of all angles, so you're going to be in crosswinds down. You're going to get pretty much every single direction of wind sort of throughout the 18 holes. So you're going to have to hit some good shots at certain points into some of these crosswinds, obviously, to keep the ball in play and things like that. But I think for me, the most, probably, I would say, I haven't played here a lot, iron play is probably the key. If you can really get the irons dialed in, for the most part the greens are quite big, but like I was saying, I think to score well, and if the scoring is going to be as low as it potentially could be if we get the favourable weather, I think your iron play would have to be really sharp to give yourself plenty looks.
Yeah, I mean, looking at your kind of stats as well, especially on the challenge tour, I mean, you were pretty long off the tee. I mean, we've got 4 par 5s, I think, this weekend as well. So are you seeing it as a course that you can maybe attack a little bit? You said that you feel like it might score low depending on the weather. You feeling like it's a course that you could attack a little bit, or have you still got to kind of find that balance and not go and make some silly mistakes on there?
Yeah, I think so. I think you can definitely get pretty attack minded, especially on the 5s. There's sort of 2 that go one direction, 2 that go another. So let's just say, for example, you'll probably get 2 of them downwind, 2 and 2 into the wind, let's say. So it's just a case of probably taking advantage of the 2 that you'll get downwind. And then, I mean, it's a par 5, you're probably going to get it not too far away from the green in a couple of shots, and even on the into the wind hole. So it's just about probably playing them smart, and again, giving yourself a couple of looks on the ones that they're playing a bit more tricky. But I think from the course as a whole, I think you can definitely be pretty attack minded. There's a few shorter par 4s as well that you can get at and get after with sort of short clubs, wedges into the greens. So I think there's probably I would say maybe 2 or 3 holes that you kind of maybe have to be a little more patient patient on, and you would probably take 4 pars if you were offered them just now.
Yeah. And obviously you mentioned there as well, your caddy has got a lot of experience. It's a local course for him. So when you're working together, what sort of player are you with your caddy? Like, are you one that wants a lot of information during your round from your caddy? Obviously, you know, you experience yourself with the course, or is it just kind of like a conversation between the two, or do you try and take more his advice over what you should be doing on each shot, etc.?
Yeah, no, I think it goes a little bit both ways. So I've been working with this guy for a few weeks now, and we've got quite a good relationship in the way that we kind of just talk through the shot together. And I mean, if he doesn't agree, with what I'm coming out with, he'll say, and then vice versa. So I think communication is massive when you've got a caddy out there. So what I found is we've worked really well and kind of bounced ideas and bounced the right information off each other, which is key, to ultimately then come to the right decision, to then be able, from my point of view, to commit to the shot fully. So information wise, I'm not really one that kind of dives too deep into things. We'll obviously for me, it's just a case of sort of front number, flag number, and then we'll get the wind and sort of come to a number where we want to land it, and sort of what the number is playing wind wise to get there.
Mm-hmm. Has he added any sort of like added information that, you know, you didn't think of maybe at the start, with, again, in terms of his experience here, that he's kind of, you know, said something and you were like, oh yeah, I've not thought about that yet, just with him having a lot of experience here as well? Or have you both been on more or less the same kind of thought process?
Yeah, no, we've both been pretty much on the same page, to be fair, throughout the sort of practice days and throughout the week. Yeah, like I said, I think for us, from my point of view, the most important part is just to communicate. And as long as we communicate to each other what we're thinking before I go into the shot, then I think it gives me the best opportunity to then go in and commit to the golf shot. So I think, yeah, there's been nothing, like I was saying earlier, it's one of those courses where it is kind of pretty much most in front of you. There's no real surprises that will get thrown in. So it's just a case of, again, like you had said earlier, just not overcomplicating everything that we're doing this week. Just kind of come to the same decisions and keep it pretty simple, to be honest.
Yeah. And looking into the putting side of the game now, what do the greens look like this weekend? Again, looking at your stats on the Challenge Tour, I think you actually ranked #1 for putting, so it's obviously something you're very comfortable with. How are the greens looking, and are they looking like, again, ones that you're going to be holding a lot of birdies, or is it going to be a little bit of a mix?
I think the greens they're pure, very, very pure up here. The surfaces are lovely, so I think there'll be a lot of putts hold this week. If I recall, last year after this event, I think Lee Westwood was quoted in one of his interviews after the week saying that they were the best greens he'd putted on all season.
Oh wow!
So for somebody of obviously that caliber to say that, he's been playing in majors and stuff like that throughout the course of a year. So I think that just kind of paints a picture of how good the surfaces are. They're pretty generous size wise, but there's obviously a few, as any links course will have, a few humps and bumps to sort of navigate your way around as well. But yeah, I think as a whole, I mean, if a tour pro was to put on greens like this every week, you certainly wouldn't hear many complaints.
Yeah. And in terms of your actual game then, with the practice, is there anything in particular that you have worked on with your coach or anything, or on your own at the range before this tournament? Or do you just try and keep things simple again and just focus on doing what you do and what you know?
Yeah, nothing really specifically for this golf course, to be honest. I've just been working on a couple of things, probably the last maybe 3 to 4 weeks. I've just kind of trying to be sharpen up my wedge game a little bit, sort of inside 100 yards, just really get my numbers a bit more dialed, which again, like I said earlier, I think that's probably an area that could come in handy around here. There's a few short fours where we're wedging. If you're wedging it good, you'll give yourself plenty of looks as well. And like I said, you're probably going to maybe be wedging it on a couple of the par fives that are into the wind as well. So yeah, I think they just kind of go hand in hand. I mean, I think wedging is pretty important in any event, but I think it certainly could be pretty important if you're gonna have a good score for a few days around here.
Yeah, and what sort of things have you been doing then to work on that? Any particular drills, or is it just one particular area of the wedges that you concentrated on?
Yeah, nothing really specific drill wise, just basically hitting numbers, really more just feeling and just mixing and matching different numbers. I've kind of got my stock numbers, but it's more I've been kind of working on the little in between numbers that kind of you can get thrown at. Obviously throughout the course of a round. You obviously try and well, like selling par fives and stuff, you do try and lay it up to a number that you're comfortable with, but it doesn't always pan out that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been kind of just working hard on really kind of getting the numbers dialed in. Like I was saying, I think I watched a bit of the golf. I think it was the Open week, and I really you notice guys like Morikawa just flag high constantly, especially with the mid to short irons and wedges. So I think that's just massive if you can really dial your numbers in in the sort of shorter clubs. You're never really, if you're hitting it flag high, you're never going to be too far away from
Sure.
pins. So you're going to give yourself a lot of decent looks. So I think yeah, that's one of the areas I kind of wasn't overly happy with. I was probably from around 80 yards and then needed a bit of tidying up. So I've been kind of grinding away on that the last few weeks, and I feel like in practice it's been pretty tidy. So I'm happy with the direction it's been going.
Yeah, it's an interesting point as well, especially for amateur golfers like myself. I think one thing that not a lot of them do is looking at those numbers in more depth. Like rather than just getting you stock numbers, it's 3/4 swing or whatever you want to call it with a pitching wedge or sand wedge. How much yardage are you going to get on that, and knowing those individual yardages rather than just the stock ones is really key, and not a lot of amateur golfers do it. So what sort of system do you have for that? I mean, is it just a case of feeling, if I go 10 o'clock with a club or 11 o'clock with the club, then I'm getting X distance, or what other systems do you use for that?
Yeah, pretty much. It's just kind of as basic as you're saying. It's more, I wouldn't say it's the clock system that a lot of guys use, but I kind of just go sort of half, 3/4 and full, or the sort of 3 stock ones I'll have with each wedge. And basically my 3/4 swing to me is basically just a shoulder swing. So I basically just feel like I'm swinging to my shoulder.
Right.
And then so it's kind of obviously a bit shorter than a full swing. So for these kind of swings, for me it's more feel, but it's pretty basic feelings to me. Obviously half is pretty much your waist, maybe just past your waist for me. But yeah, the 3/4 one's probably the important one for me. It's just kind of basically just getting it to almost my right shoulder, and then
Sure.
turning from there.
Good stuff. And go back to yourself then a little bit. So I want to go back to the start with you in terms of how you got into golf and stuff like that. So you're from Perth originally in Scotland, and Celtic fan, right?
How
did you get into golf? What sort of age did you start, and why did you get into it?
So I started when I was probably, well, you hear all sorts of stories from professional golfers, and a lot of the top ones seem to start quite young, but I didn't really start till I was around 9 or 10, to be honest.
Okay.
I did a lot of sports, like a lot of the athletes do when you're at school and stuff like that. I played football mostly, but golf on the side. So it was one of those ones where my dad was a golfer and my granddad was a golfer as well. But for the majority of the time, it was kind of my granddad in the school holidays that got me into it properly. Kind of went up to our local club, and yeah, I would just end up obviously start like most people do, just whacking the ball around and trying to find it and whacking it again, and then you just, I guess, and started to enjoy it a little more, and then just kind of you go through the motions, I guess. Maybe got a lesson here and there to start with a local pro or junior coaching, like a lot of guys start out with. So yeah, kind of probably a similar path like that, just a bit of a later starter. And then as I kind of grew older, just very similar. I played football and golf, and it was kind of mix and match between the two. And then I got to sort of 15, 16, and it got to the stage where I was obviously quite good at both, and I ended up having to decide which path to kind of go down. I was playing sort of professionally football wise at a boys club as well, the local team St Johnston. So I was playing for them, as well as then at this point I was getting picked for the Scotland academy stuff for the national team. So I kind of obviously had to pick at that point decide which route I was going to go. And yeah, it just turned out I decided to go golf, and it seems to have panned out so far.
I was going to say, I mean, was that a tough choice for you then? I mean, you sound like you're a big football fan. Was it something tough to give up that?
It was at the time, yeah. I was enjoying my football. I still do, obviously, enjoy football, but it just, yeah, if I'm honest with you, I was probably fairly lazy in the football side of things. the runnings, yeah.
What position were you? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
there you
I played up front, and then they tried to get me go to, as I got a bit older, sort of between playing striker and left wing, and yeah, left wing was just too much running for me. So I kind of didn't fancy getting up and down that line for 90 minutes, to be honest. So yeah, like I said, it was a difficult decision. I think it was probably, I felt like I probably couldn't progress to a sort of high I think golf wise, I don't think you can ever know how good you can get. Whereas football, I think you get to a certain level and you see guys around you, and you can you can tell, okay, this guy's going to make it, this guy's probably not quite got it. And I felt I was probably in that category of not quite, to be honest. I look at some of the guys I played with in that Saints team, and the guys that you thought would make it have made it. So I think I've kind of looked back on that as you get older, and probably realized it was the right decision, to be honest. So it's kind of indicated when you see the top guys.
I mean, it's great that even at the age of, you said you were about 15 or 16 when you decided that you were able to make that educated decision, because even then you're still young, aren't you, to go, look, I'm not quite going to make it here in football, and make that crucial decision, as like you said now, is obviously the right one.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. I think certainly at that point as well, I think the golf side of things was, I wasn't a great golfer by any means either. There was certainly guys in Scotland, in the squad that were better than me for sure, at that age. But I just felt like I was saying, you can improve in golf constantly, and you never really know, I guess, how good you can get and what level you can get at. Because at that level, to be honest, I wouldn't have said I had any aspirations to turn pro. Afterwards, I just was in, probably like any other kid at 15, 16, just to get picked to sort of be in a squad with your country, and then the following year get picked to represent your country. I was just enjoying sort of life and golf, really, and enjoying playing golf and enjoying that experience with some of my teammates at the time. And then obviously as time goes on, you just basically keep improving, I guess, and then suddenly you've got some decisions to make as you get a little bit older.
Sure. And what sort of handicap were you at then, about that 15, 16, when you kind of decided that golf was going to be the thing to focus on?
I think I was around scratch.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I was around scratch when I first, scratch maybe +1 when I first got kind of in the national setup.
So I imagine that made probably the decision also a little bit easier, doesn't it? Because if you're kind of maybe similar with golf and football, and it's kind of like, oh, which one am I actually better at? I guess when you scratch at golf, maybe it's a bit of an easier decision.
Yeah, 100%. I think so. And I think it was more, I remember going down to sort of St Andrews and the first sort of squad day with the guys from all over Scotland. I think there was maybe, let's say, a dozen of us at that point. And you went down, and it was the first real time. Like I'd competed in a couple of national events, but nothing major. And it was my first kind of like eye opener, seeing how good other guys sort of my age, or even like the 17, 18-year-olds were. And I guess obviously then you quickly aspire to get to their level or better. Just having, I guess that's just the competitiveness that all us athletes have in us.
Yeah. So were you playing a lot of amateur tournaments then, or did you turn pro fairly quickly?
Yeah, no, so I played quite a lot of amateur stuff. So I basically obviously went through the national boys stuff from sort of that age, 16, 17, 18. And then I actually went to college in the States.
Okay, wow.
So I spent 4 years over there at a school called Lynn University down in South Florida. So I spent 4 years over there, obviously doing the college golf.
Perfect place
And then
to play some golf and learn
yeah, mate,
down
it
in
was
Florida.
incredible. It was incredible. It really was. It was it's just a beautiful spot for your golf. Obviously the weather all year round. So it was, yeah, it's difficult not to. I always say to people, I think it's very difficult not to get better going to a place like that.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think, and I have always said as well, I think for me, it then gave me the platform to turn pro. I think, I don't think I think if I hadn't gone to the States, I don't think I'd have probably got to the level I needed to get to turn pro.
Right. Okay. I mean, that's a good point. I mean, it kind of just grew you as a player then. And I imagine college golf, it's really competitive there in the States. So I imagine that brought you on leaps and bounds as well.
Massively. I remember, yeah, I remember going out. I actually flew out on my 18th birthday. And obviously you go out, and I played boys homes, boys Euros. So I was probably, let's say, top 6 maybe boys in Scotland at that time. And obviously you go from, I guess, being a big fish in a little pond to then being a tiny fish in a massive pond when you get over there. And I just remember the guys in my team I was like a tiny little pale Scottish kid going over there when I was 18, and
Yeah.
and you were coming up just against these like 21, 20, 22-year-olds that were massive, like literally hitting it 50 yards by me. And I was like, oh wow, someone's got to go here.
Yeah.
So you just do it. It's proper getting thrown in the deep end. Like, you're there. We had tryouts to make the team, as in like for the tournament team. So you basically qualified for that with the 5 guys, and it was just like, well, I've been here for 2-3 weeks. Suddenly you're getting thrown into qualifying against these guys that are hitting a 50 by you. And then it was difficult to compete straight away. So I remember I didn't make the very first team, and then I knuckled down, and I managed to make there was one spot available for the second tournament, and I remember qualifying for that, and then I never missed another tournament after that in my 4 years. But yeah, you just got to learn quick. You've just got to learn quick. I just figured, well, you've got to suddenly start gaining a bit of length. Number one, get in the gym, get yourself a bit bigger, start to try and hit it a little further, so you can, I guess, compete with these guys. But I mean, for me, it was just a massive eye opener, and a case of, wow, how quickly you have to learn, and how good some of these guys were. And I'd only ever really experienced obviously the top guys in Europe and stuff like that, but yeah, going over there for me, it was a bit of a different kettle of fish.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point, and I've talked about this in multiple episodes before, so people are probably going to get me bored of saying it, but it's really true, because I spoke to a couple of other people that went to college in America to play golf that weren't American, and I've spent a little bit of time in the States. I was coaching football when I was really young, and I noticed like how competitive the Americans are, and how used they are to pressure, and how used to like media that they are, as well as what you said about how athletic they are as well at a young age. And if you look at not even college, like lower than college, high school standard, or even lower than that, they're already playing in very competitive leagues or competitions, and they're also already been introduced to the media. So the example I always give, I was out there once watching sports on whatever, a TV in a bar, and next minute they put like Little League on, and it was like 9-year-olds on ESPN playing baseball.
Yeah.
So not only are they playing in front of crowds on ESPN, they're then doing interviews afterwards. And I think like they get used to the competitiveness, they get used to the media, the pressure, etc. at such a younger age, as well as also maybe being more athletically gifted. And like you said, you come up against maybe somebody like yourself that's not been to the States before. It can be quite a shock.
100%. I couldn't agree any more there. I think it's, like I just, like, I didn't even go and visit the school I went to. I just literally, it all happened really quickly, and I basically just flew out there. The coach picked me up, and at the airport, and off I went to the uni, and basically then seen it for the first time, and seen the everything that went with it. And for me, that was the biggest thing that I noticed early, was just the size of everything. And like you were saying, the more the size of like these guys coming from high schools and the top high schools in their areas. And some of these high schools have like 30,000 people at a game, or like a football game or a basketball game or whatever sport it might be. Like, and I mean, that's to like coming from Scotland, that's just, I couldn't get my head around that to begin with. I was like, you struggle to fill football stadiums up here for top level teams, out with sort of maybe Celtic, Rangers, Hearts and Hibs. Everybody else is probably less than 15,000, and these guys were getting more, and they're playing in front of crowds that size, if not even bigger, and they're only 14, 15, 16 years old. It was crazy. And I think for me as well, one of the things I noticed with the golf was, and I think I still to this day, I think it's very relatable, as in you can go and watch the PGA Tour versus the European Tour. And I think if you were to go and watch the PGA Tour, you can watch the coverage for 2 hours, let's say, and you can see, I don't know, 20, 30 golf swings. And let's say like 10 of them are technically like textbook. The rest are a bit all over the map, not what you would call conventional, etc., not what coaches potentially would teach. But by God, they can get the ball in the hole. And at the end of the day, that's the only thing that matters. Like, they'll go out and shoot 66 every time they play. And then for me, it's like you watch the European Tour, and I just feel you would watch 30 swings and probably 26, 27 are probably textbook.
Sure.
So I think over here, technique.
You think that's not exactly a good thing?
I don't. If I'm honest, I don't really think it's a good or a bad thing. I just feel like the Americans are they grow up with a golf swing, and they're never really taught to change it. They're just taught, right, that's your golf swing, let's mold it around there. And but they're also more performance based. Like I see over the years and things like that, get so many guys get stuck in a rut, being at the range for beating 500 to 600 balls a day and just working on the technique. And then you bring them out on the golf course, and like they don't miss a shot in the range, but they can't break 75.
Sure.
Whereas like the biggest thing for me in America, and my coach, my first couple of years basically just backed this up, was you just score. He goes, he doesn't care how you swing it. It's like, it's black and white. If you're not shooting 60s in the 60s, you're not going to be in my team, basically.
That's all that matters, really.
Exactly, that is completely all that matters. And I just think they do a massively better job on that side of things over there. They just teach their guys so early how to score and how to go and shoot 8, 9, 10 under par. When they get it going, they just freewheel it, and there's no holding them back. Whereas, again, I guess this is another thing, just UK based. When you're playing all these amateur events, okay, you're playing on these top golf courses like the Lytham Trophy, St Andrews Links, and all the rest of it, like top quality links golf courses that aren't easy. I just also think you're always playing Lytham, and I mean, the times I played Lytham, it was pumping 20, 30 mile an hour, raining sideways, not very warm. So it's like, I just feel like the amateur tournaments over here are just a battle, an absolute grind. And like level par or 1 under par more often than not is a very, very good score. So it's like, another thing I found when I went over there was, when I did get to the level where I was 4 or 5 under after 9 holes, like my coach was like, I'd done a bit of work with him, and he was just really like, push on, and you get to 5, go and shoot 7, go and shoot 8, get to 9. Just that relentless mentality of just pushing on, and that ability to kind of, because I feel like it is a ability when you get that low to then sort of, right, let's take the reins off and bash on and shoot 9 or 10 under. Whereas I guess in the UK, guys just aren't used to having to go that low, because like I said, the courses are obviously difficult, but just the weather and stuff like that doesn't often, shall we say, allow somebody to go and shoot a number like that.
I mean, I just want to jump on that point about the swings because it's interesting. I was listening to I think it was the Sky Sports podcast a couple of months ago, and Andrew Coulthard, who's Scottish, he was commenting on the teaching of the young women in Scotland in particular, and he was saying something fairly similar, whereby I don't think they're doing it now, but up until not long ago, they were basically just doing this thing whereby they would teach the girls a textbook swing, and it wasn't about, okay, so let's see what you do right now, or you know, how you like to swing or how you feel comfortable, and we'll work around that and mold the swing around that. It was more like it should be done like this, and that's how you do it. Whereas again, what you were saying before about America, it's very much like, you know, whatever works. If it keeps the numbers low on the scorecard, it works, and that's, you know, the end of it.
Yeah, I think, yeah, you're right. I mean, like, I if I'm honest with you, I'm not 100% sure on the girls' side of things in Scotland how it was run and how things went along, but I definitely know it was before my time. You just hear these things, obviously being around the block and stuff like that. And you do hear years and years ago that similar, I think, techniques were put in place for certain guys in certain setups, whether it's in Scotland or England. There was,
well, I was going to say, I imagine it happens in all the UK. I'm not just saying it was Scotland. I imagine it happens all over. That's what I'm saying.
It never, certainly when I was in the squads, it wasn't the case. We had, obviously, I think there was most of us had different golf coaches, so as well, so that, like, we weren't just getting taught by the national coach. The national coaches were there to have a relationship with your coach and basically work together and then improve you, and they would know what you're working on when you're on trips and have the areas where you guys are trying to get better. But yeah, I've heard very similar stories, I think, throughout the years from different from different people, that I think that potentially was the case for the men's game in Scotland as well. And yeah, whether or not, I mean, it's a good thing, but I just think, yeah, you see it in the States and it's just very much built around a golf swing. Don't get me wrong, there are a lot of guys in the States that swing it textbook, but I just feel like more often than not, you're looking at guys that have a little funky move here, or they don't quite swing it as you could draw. If, like, the perfect swing, essentially, most people would probably say Adam Scott. You know what I mean? Sure. So in that, if you kind of go on that basis, then like for me, a DJ is a prime example, the best player in the world, and he's obviously got his bowed wrist and things like that.
Yeah.
And he's worked on different things over the years, but I mean, there's just so many guys. Jim Furyk is probably your prime example.
I mean, even if you look at John Rahm, who's now the number one, it's mainly down to some issues he had with his leg since birth, I believe. But he's still got, obviously, a very strange swing, if you like, with that short backswing. So it just goes to show that, you know, it doesn't have to be textbook, for sure.
Basically, my opinion on it is just these guys are taught to score and how to score from a young age. And well, certainly from my perspective, growing up, that kind of wasn't the case in Scotland. For whatever reason, I couldn't tell you why that is, or why the coaches and the guys at B don't, I guess, push guys into that sort of scenario more. But I think as things are evolving, it could be in place now. I don't know. It probably is in place now, because I think the knowledge is obviously in the game of golf, and for a lot of other things, it is improved vastly since I was a junior, and even in probably the last 2-3 years. So but yeah, I think that's just the way I look at it anyway.
No, I mean, it's a good point, because I mean, I'm in a similar scenario now where, again, as an amateur golfer, I'm having lessons, and my personal weak spot at the moment is shallowing the club. So trying to get that club closer to my right hip on the downswing is what I'm kind of working on at the moment. And my teacher is just, you know, very much, it's just simple information. This is what you need to do, but he's not too bothered about how I do it. So he's, you know, we've tried different drills, we've tried different feels and different movements. And he's saying, look, there's probably 10 different ways that you can get that club to shallow. I'm not going to tell you which one is right, which one is correct. He just says, you know, just do them, try them. on the course, or whether it's in the studio, on the range, wherever you've got the space to do it and not feel, you know, uncomfortable trying new things, just do it. And whatever feels good for you, whatever works and whatever gets the best results, just go with that.
I think that's
it's all trying to achieve the same thing effectively.
100%. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. And I also think that there is usually 100 different ways in a golf swing to get into a certain position. And some people might not be able to get into that position because of their body can't get them in that position. So I think for me, that's the other thing. It's like, you might be able to do a move that I can't in a golf swing, and vice versa. Like, I might be able to get my, let's say, I don't know, I might be able to get it a bit laid off easier because I've got more stability or more mobility in my right shoulder, or you know what I mean? Like, just little things like that. And I think as amateur golfers, they don't always understand that. They go to a coach and a coach will say, right, this is what you need to do, go away and do it. And I know it's obviously only amateur golf, but who knows if they could even get it in that position because of their body. And their body might not physically be able to get them to that position that can then obviously benefit them. So and that's just one thing you learn obviously over the years in golf. It's just picking up on little things like that, and knowing what your body can and can't do, as well as I think is just as important as knowing your tendencies in a golf swing.
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, you touched on obviously the college golf there in America. So one thing you would try to do to get yourself prepared for that was to maybe get to the gym and work on your distance. And then in terms of going to play on like the Challenge Tour, and then now on the European Tour as well, what sort of changes, if any, did you kind of make to then, you know, get yourself ready for that next stage or level, if you like, of your golf career?
Yeah, so I think my career has just been very sort of gradual. It's like I was saying, when I first sort of started to get picked for the Scotland boys team, I was probably at the very bottom end of things in that regard, and then just kind of improved steadily until getting picked for sort of the Europeans, which is only 6 guys. My last year as a boy, college, every year just kind of kept improving, and then finished college. I stayed amateur for a year, and I won a few amateur events in Scotland, won the South African amateur and over there, and got to the final of the Scottish Am over here. So it all just kind of kept gradually improving and ticking boxes, I guess, to prove and to show you were moving in the right direction. And then it got to the point where I just felt I was obviously, confidence was growing through these sort of winning events and obviously playing well. So it just got to the point where I was like, I just feel like I would be silly not to give the pro ranks a go. I felt like I was at a level where I could definitely compete and give it a run. So I just felt it would probably have been a regret. I would have maybe looked back on it later in life if I didn't turn pro, with a bit of regret and just look back and go, why didn't I give that a run, kind of thing. So for me, that was kind of, I guess, as well, one of the reasons I did it. I just thought I've got to the stage where I'm at, and it's been similar as a pro. I've just gradually sort of improved every year as a pro. Sort of my stats, I do my stats through with a Scottish guy called Graham Leslie through Golf Data Lab, it's called. And I've done my stats with him for years and years throughout my amateur days and stuff like that. And every year I've just statistically got a little better in areas.
Trending.
Yeah, just trending. And it's just like, I mean, it's little tiny percentages here and there. It's nothing major, obviously, but it's just like, I mean, it's the old thing in golf. If you can get 1% better in this area over a year, I mean, that can equate to potentially half a shot around.
Yeah,
which 100%. Then adds up to between maybe 2 and 4 shots a tournament, which is massive.
Yeah,
so it's 100%. So it's just these little things, and I think it's, if you can just kind of keep doing what you're doing. And I'd spoken to, when I was turning pro, I'd spoken to a few guys that I know that had turned pro, and couple of guys that are still pros, and a couple of guys that hadn't obviously worked out for. And kind of the biggest thing I took away from the different opinions was, don't change for the sake of changing. Like, you see a lot of guys turn pro, or they get to the European Tour very quickly, and they're like, oh, I need to change coach, I need to do this, I need to do that. But it's like,
yeah,
well, you've got to the level you're at through doing what you're doing. You're obviously doing the right things. You're obviously got a coach that's working for you. It's just a case of keeping everything as simple. Well, what we were talking about, keeping everything as simple as possible, and just not changing for changing's sake. And I just think there's a lot of people that can get suckered into that side of things, and it can almost ruin a golfer before they really get started as well.
Yeah, it's funny, actually. I had this conversation the other day, and I always relate it to football, because you ever see a team that comes up from, say, like the Championship in England to the Premier League, occasionally they'll just change everything. They change the assistant manager, they'll sign 10 new players, and then they go straight back down, and everybody's like, well, why did that happen? And you should never change too much of what's working. And I don't know, maybe a bit of them, they just kind of panic when they get to that level. They feel like they need to all of a sudden find an even better coach, or an even better whatever it is, caddy.
That's the thing. And from my point of view, it's just a case, I've kept most of my things the same. I've added a little extra people along the way, just to try and obviously help keep moving forward. So
sure,
it's definitely not stand still, but I think be aware of what you're doing. And I guess if it gets to the point where it's not working and things are maybe a bit stale, then potentially you can obviously maybe freshen things up, or look elsewhere, or get a second opinion on whatever your S&C or your swing or your putt, I don't know, whatever part of the puzzle that you feel like it might benefit you in.
Sure. Well, Daniel, listen, it's been a pleasure talking to you and meeting you today. Thank you for coming on. And obviously it's a home event-ish for you in Scotland. So have you got your family and friends coming out for the tournament?
Yeah, I've got a few guys coming out over throughout the week. So it'll be nice to have fans back, and especially Scottish fans. I'm looking forward to having friends and family come out. I think it's probably it's probably my first certainly European Tour event where that's been the case in this country. Get family and friends out to watch. So hopefully I can put on a good show for them over the next few days.
For sure, man. And then for anybody that wants to find you on social, it's Daniel_Young23 on Twitter, and then Daniel Young 91 on Instagram. And I wish you all the best tomorrow, and I hope you do well.
Perfect. Thanks very much, mate. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Great talking to you, mate. Thank you, mate. Cheers.